I know, shocker. Andreas Johnsson was cut by the New Jersey Devils, and hopefully he clears waivers so that way he can report to Utica. And also, the New Jersey Devils are not done making roster moves. They got to make a couple of more cuts before the start of the regular season. And how do I think that's going to turn out? Well, courtesy of my friends over at allaboutthejersey.com, I'm going to go into more detail about that. So, lots to talk about in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, and also Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, Trey Matthews. What's on the agenda for today? We're going to talk about Andreas Johnsson and what I feel as though his future looks in terms of him being a part of the New Jersey Devils organization. And then we're going to look at the roster structure, and we're going to look at players who could potentially make the team or players who might find themselves in Utica, because the Devils still have a couple more cuts to make, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But first, let's talk about the big story from yesterday, and that was Andreas Johnsson being waived by the New Jersey Devils. Now, this was pretty much inevitable. Andreas Johnsson was the odd man out, and unfortunately, you know, with the amount of talent that the New Jersey Devils have coming up, it was just a matter of which player can you potentially get more out of, like which player can you push, which player has more untapped potential. And the thing with Andreas Johnsson is that I did make a case for him to, you know, possibly save himself a seat on the roster for the Devils. I said, like, I saw improvement from Andreas Johnsson last year. Like, you saw that after the first month or so, but then after a while, Andreas Johnsson just went quiet. And here's the thing that I talked about a couple episodes ago. I said that this is on the New Jersey Devils because they hypothetically, I don't know, like if the phones were ringing for Andreas Johnsson or whatever the case might be. I said, like, look for the trade value for Andreas Johnsson while his stock is still somewhat decent, because, you know, he's running out of contract time, and, you know, his stock is going to continue to decline. And now it's gotten to a point where you have to waive him and you're going to get nothing out of it. But I don't think the Devils will lose too much sleep at night, because if he is hypothetically picked up by a team, that could help the New Jersey Devils' salary cap situation. But quite honestly, guys, I would have liked to maybe have gotten a draft pick out of Andreas Johnsson if he is hypothetically picked up. But we'll talk about his what his future is like with the Devils just moments from now. But like I said, this was just inevitable for Andreas Johnsson. And, you know, it's just disappointing to see. And I think Andreas Johnsson also realized it himself, because when he spoke to Ryan Novozinski, he said that he was going to be tossing and turning for a good number of nights just because he missed an open breakaway in preseason. And at that point, that was pretty much the death knell for Andreas Johnsson. He knew that was pretty much the signage on the wall saying that he was not going to be given a roster spot on the Devils roster, because unfortunately, you know, Tomas Tatar stepped up his game. Alexander Holtz stepped up his game. Fabian Zetterlund, we knew that he was going to be an X factor going forward. So with Andreas Johnsson being waived, it pretty much opens up a pathway for Fabian Zetterlund to get a roster spot come opening night. Now, here's what the NHL released in their press release in regards to the situation with Andreas Johnsson. So the Devils still have 26 players remaining in training camp, 16 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders. Opening day 23-man rosters must be submitted to the NHL by 5 p.m. on Monday, October 10th. 3 moves will have to be made, not including goalie Jonathan Bernier, for the New Jersey Devils. And if you're wondering what the situation is like for Andreas Johnsson, is he going to report to Utica? Is another team going to claim him off waivers? Well, here's the thing. According to Ben Burnell, who is a friend of the show and he covers Utica comments, he said Johnsson will need to clear by Saturday in order to be assigned to Utica. And he also said that Johnsson is a notable player who was put onto the waivers. And here's the thing. A team like the Arizona Coyotes, they might have their eyes set on Andreas Johnsson just because, like I said, his production was somewhat decent, but just very inconsistent. Like, The thing is, he appeared in 71 games last year. He had 13 goals, 22 assists for a grand total of 35 points, and he had a plus-minus of +4. But like I said, for Andreas Johnsson, the production came early on in the season, like the first month or so, and that was pretty much another X factor that was not in the favor of Andreas Johnsson, just because it's just like, come opening night, and if he is on the roster, I might get solid production out of him for the first month or so, like the first 8 weeks. But then after that, what do I get? I get basically a player that I forget that is on the team. So that was pretty much the writing on the wall. I hope Andreas Johnsson does clear waivers because I actually do want him to rebound just a little bit. So I hope he does reach Utica. But if not, like I said in the previous episode, if he is hypothetically picked up by another team, because who knows, when this episode goes live tomorrow morning, or it's live right now, Andreas Johnsson might be on his way to Arizona for all I know. So we'll see what happens, but that's the overall story for Andreas Johnsson. I predicted it, knew it was going to happen. I think every Devils fan knew it was going to happen. Inevitable. Wish him the best. I hope he does reach Utica, and like Ben Burnell said, he has to clear it by Saturday afternoon, I believe, at 2 p.m. if he wants to report to Utica. So we'll see what happens in that regards, but that's the situation for Andreas Johnsson. And now it raises the question, like, which other players are going to be cut for New Jersey Devils? Because I'll repeat it once more. 26 players still remain in training camp, 16 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders. And the roster has to be 23, and it has to be submitted by Monday, October 10th at 5 p.m. So the New Jersey Devils need to make a few other moves. And now raise the question, who's going to be cut? Well, who's going to be sent to Utica? And how's the roster structure going to form? Because the thing is, the Devils can take an extra defenseman, and I found an article courtesy of allaboutthejersey.com that went into more detail in that regard. So we're going to look at that momentarily. But before we continue with today's episode, I want to bring you guys the first and only live read this morning, and it comes from our friends at BetOnline. So BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis and articles on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Please remember to gamble responsibly and visit our friends at Locked On Bets for all your betting needs there as well. Just a disclaimer. I do have a cough drop in my mouth right now. I'm still dealing with my sore throat. And obviously when I'm recording an episode, I don't want to be coughing. So just giving that disclaimer, if you ever hear like clicking on my teeth or whatever the case might be, or if you're watching on YouTube, if you see one of my cheeks, is puffier than the other, it's just because trying to hide the cough drop. But anyway, the show must go on. So we talked about Andreas Johnsson and the overall situation of him being waived, and I gave my opinion in that regards. And now let's look at the roster structure for New Jersey Devils, because they still have to make a few more cuts come opening night. Now, I did some sleuthing around, and I found an article on allaboutthejersey.com, and it talked about the roster structure as it is right now and which players could potentially make the team for the New Jersey Devils. So the 3 goalies are Mackenzie Blackwood, Vitek Vanacek, and Jonathan Bernier. The defensemen, there's 8 of them. You got Kevin Bahl, Ryan Graves, Dougie Hamilton, John Marino, Shimon Nemec, Damon Severson, Jonas Siegenthaler, and Brendan Smith. And then for the forwards, you got 16 of them. So bear with me. Nathan Bastian, Jesper Boquist, Jesper Bratt, Mason Gearston, Eric Holla, Nico Hischier, Alexander Holtz, Jack Hughes, Michael McLeod, Dawson Mercer, Andre Palat, Yegor Sharangovich, Tomas Tatar, Tice Thompson, Miles Wood, and Fabian Zetterlund. Now, it does raise an interesting question, what's going to happen to some of these other players? So of all the 8 defensemen, I think we know who's going to make the opening night roster. It's one of the reasons why we haven't really been having this debate, because we know that Dougie Hamilton is going to make it. We know Ryan Graves is going to make it. Jonas Siegenthaler, Damon Severson, John Marino, Brendan Smith, because John Marino and Brendan Smith were picked up during the course of the offseason. There is no way that they're not going to make the roster. So, that's pretty much it. But the interesting thing that allaboutthejersey.com brought up in their article is that, the Devils could go into opening night with those 6 and be done with it. And Bahl and Nemec are waiver ineligible. So their demotion would mean the Devils only have to cut 1 forward. Now, They don't believe that's going to be the case. So they said teams tend to carry an extra defenseman on their roster. So they brought up the debate. Who should make the opening night roster? Kevin Bahl or Shimon Nemec? Now, obviously, it would be an extra. So they wouldn't really play, but maybe they would be given an opportunity here or there, maybe one or two NHL actions just to, see who's the more NHL-ready player. And you know what? We've done it for Fabian Zetterlund and we've done it for Alexander Holt. So why not do it for Shimon Nemec and also Kevin Bahl? So as you guys know, I'm big on both players. Like I like Shimon Nemec. He's an athlete and, he's proven during the course of preseason that I think he does have some NHL potential and I think he is NHL ready. We saw his aggression during the Prospects tournament, but Kevin Bahl has been having a sneaky good preseason. And All About the Jersey has acknowledged it. So Bahl's performance in preseason has been very good. His defending has been tidy. He has not taken too many penalties, and he is posting pretty well. And his positioning has been good in addition to that. And the Devils wanted to see Bahl during the course of preseason, so they gave him 66 minutes. And, only a handful of players have had more 5-on-5 ice time than Bahl during the course of the preseason action, or as I like to call it, the beta NHL games. But nonetheless, it's like Kevin Bahl, we haven't really been talking about him, but he's been having a sneaky good preseason. And then Shimon Nemec, he's an athlete. I've been big on him ever since the New Jersey Devils drafted him. He has a lot of upside. He has a lot of potential. But if I had to pick one or the other, I'm going to go with what allaboutthejersey.com said because they picked Kevin Bahl over Shimon Nemec. And the reason why is simply this, because there's no reason to rush Shimon Nemec. Like, yeah, he was selected second overall, but at the same time, there's a lot of other good defensemen in front of him. So why did we draft Shimon Nemec in the first place? It was to develop him alongside Luke Hughes, who is still, doing his sophomore year campaign at the University of Michigan. So we need to have patience with Shimon Nemec. That's why he's a little bit of a project because, I get that's a bit of a hot take, but bear with me in that regards. It's because Shimon Nemec, there's no reason to rush him. We're trying to develop him. We're trying to take his game to the next level. The one thing I want to see him do, which he was able to do during the course of the playoffs when he was playing overseas, I want to see him generate more offense off his twig. We've seen it during the course of practice. We've seen it during the course of, some clips that either Amanda Stein or Ryan Novozinski tweet out of him having just an absolute strong slap shot, wherever the case might be. Like the puck is flying off his stick. And we want to elevate that just a little bit more. So we want to just polish him up and get him ready for Luke Hughes. And with those two, and I don't know how it's going to work next year, but I'm not trying to think too far ahead in that regards. But the fact of the matter is this: Luke Hughes and Shimon Nemec, whether they both begin in Utica, whether they make the roster out of training camp come next year, they're definitely going to be an interesting defensive tandem. So I think for Shimon Nemec, it's better. It's just best for him to start the season in Utica, get more opportunities down there, and just wait for his potential future buddy in Luke Hughes. So that's my overall stance. And Kevin Bahl, during the course of last season, especially towards the end of those games, we saw the potential. We saw him keeping offensive possessions alive for New Jersey Devils. We saw him be a decent shot suppressor when he made his NHL debut just a couple years ago. So my overall take about Kevin Bahl is just like, I think he has had more time to develop. I think he's more ready than Shimon Nemec. I get that a lot of people might not agree with me in that regards, but he has been with the organization longer. And I think if anyone deserves a chance to maybe get a few more NHL games under their belt early, I think it belongs to Kevin Bahl in that regard. So the battle between Shimon Nemec and Kevin Bahl, I'm going to go with Kevin Bahl in that regard. So Kevin Bahl will make the opening night roster for New Jersey Devils as an extra defenseman for New Jersey. And now, from 31 forwards to 16, similar to defensemen, most of these players are going to be on the team. So when it comes to the forwards, there's definitely a lot of question marks because it's just like we don't know what's going to happen to Michael McLeod, Mason Gearston. I don't even know why he's still on the roster at this point. Like, he's terrible. My only thing is I think it's just he's an enforcer and he just he's able to just get under the ire of his opponents. And, second game of the year, against the Seattle Kraken when Jack Hughes went down with an injury. He got some payback, and I think that's what kind of solidified him having somewhat of a decent of a role the rest of the season for New Jersey Devils. But the fact of the matter is this. Yes, I appreciate his aggression. I appreciate his hard work, but it doesn't exonerate the lack of skill that he has. So I don't think Mason Gerstin should be on the opening night roster for New Jersey Devils. I just don't believe it. So, when looking at the forwards, if I had to make a prediction, I'd say that Mason Gerstin, he's got to get waived. He's got to get cut. No one's going to pick him up. So, if they do, so be it. Like, I don't care. And I think a lot of Devils fans will just be like, oh, Mason Gerstin, yeah, the name rings a bell somewhere. Whatever the case might be. He's an enforcer. I love his energy. I love his tenacity. I love the energy he brings. But like I said, the skill is just not there. So why do we still have him on this damn roster? Get him off the roster. So when looking at that, I think Gerstin would be a dead giveaway to be sent down by the New Jersey Devils or get waived, whatever the case might be. But for the upbeat time, Mason Gerstin should not be on the roster for the New Jersey Devils. And I can't reiterate that enough. Now, according to allaboutthejersey.com, they're projecting for the two players to be cut for the New Jersey Devils are to be Michael McLeod and Mason Gerstin. I'm going to have to disagree with them in that regards. I get the debate and I get the argument as to, and I'm just focusing on a hockey standpoint, not on what's going outside standpoint. So just keeping it strictly hockey for right now. I just don't see Michael McLeod getting cut from the New Jersey Devils. I just really don't see it. Now, has he done enough to solidify himself a spot? I would say no, but here's something you cannot deny. He and Nathan Bastian have great chemistry. And just a couple years ago, Michael McLeod was really good in the faceoff department for the New Jersey Devils. He brings that energy. He's a spark plug player, and that's something we need. And quite honestly, I want to see the BMW line once again. I want to see Bastian, McLeod, and Wood. So there we go, the reuniting of the BMW line. So I just don't think that Michael McLeod will follow Andreas Johnsson and get cut, because that was a discussion I've been doing the past couple episodes, which is Tom Fitzgerald could do something drastic and cut both Andreas Johnsson and Michael McLeod. But if I had to pick one or the other, I'd say Michael McLeod would get picked up from waivers quicker than Andreas Johnsson, just because I think you can get more potential out of Michael McLeod. And that's the name of the game. Which player can you get the most out of? Because they predict that Bahl, Boquist, Holtz, and Zetterlund would make the team for the New Jersey Devils, according to allaboutthejersey.com. I would say Bahl, McLeod, Holtz, and Zetterlund. Though that would be my guess, because demoting the Mets and placing Bernier on LTIR would bring the Devils down to 23 players for opening night if you just need a refresher. So, yes, we all know that Alexander Holtz and Fabian Zetterlund pretty much are locked to make the team at this point. That's why they waived Andreas Johnsson. But I just think, and I don't know if this is going to actually happen or not, but I think Michael McLeod will make the opening night roster for New Jersey Devils. Now, he is a bit of a distraction, and I think you guys are getting a little sick of me discussing it, and I don't think I'll discuss it anymore until I get more information or until this story becomes a little bit bigger. But that's just the fact. But on a hockey standpoint, I want Michael McLeod on the roster for New Jersey Devils to provide that energy and that spark plug and just be a solid contributor on the bottom six. And the BMW line, that could be somewhat entertaining. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to be one of the last few cuts for New Jersey Devils? Because at this point, it's pretty much guaranteed that Alexander Holtz and Fabian Zetterlund have made the team. Who are your other players that you might want as a backup on the defensive side of things? And which four are you willing to bring aboard for the Devils organization? So let me know what you guys think. So my predictions are Bahl, McLeod, Zetterlund, and Holtz to make the final few roster spots for New Jersey Devils. And as for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. So thanks for listening. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. And I'm going to take another cough drop because my throat is killing me and it's about to give out. So Thank God it's the weekend, so hopefully I'm better come Monday. So season's right around the corner, guys. Thanks for listening once again.